Washington, D.C. became the center of mass protest as thousands of demonstrators poured into the streets to oppose the continued deployment of the National Guard in the nation's capital. What began as a rally has now evolved into a broader outcry against federal control, military-style policing, and what many residents describe as the occupation of their own city. The demonstration, called the We Are All DC March, kicked off at 11 a.m. at Meridian Hill Park. Thousands of people gathered, holding signs and chanting as they began their march toward the White House. The rally was organized by the Free DC Project, a local community coalition, which says its neighborhoods have been unfairly targeted by federal agents. The group accuses law enforcement of profiling, harassment, and violent arrests against DC residents since the National Guard arrived. As protesters moved through the city, streets were blocked and chants of Free DC echoed through the downtown corridors. Their message was clear. They want President Trump to end what they describe as an unlawful occupation, and they demand that the National Guard be recalled immediately. The anger stems from Trump's decision in August to send the National Guard into Washington, D.C. He also placed the city's local police under federal control, arguing that drastic measures were necessary to rescue the nation's capital from crime, neglect, and chaos. Trump promised to take our capital back and restore what he called law and order. But for many residents, this move stripped away local authority and created the feeling that their own city had been militarized. Community activists argue that the presence of heavily armed troops has only escalated tensions and fear, especially in working-class and minority neighborhoods. They say that instead of tackling the root causes of crime and social unrest, the federal government is responding with intimidation and suppression. What has further fueled the protests is the Army's recent announcement. A memo issued earlier this week confirmed that the National Guard's deployment in Washington would be extended through November. Originally scheduled as a 30-day operation set to end on September 10th, the extension now ensures the Guard's continued presence for months to come. For protesters, this reinforced the belief that D.C. is under long-term military occupation rather than temporary security. The situation in Washington is not isolated. It mirrors Trump's earlier decision to send the National Guard into Los Angeles under similar justification. And he has gone further, threatening to extend this approach to other major U.S. cities, most notably Chicago and New Orleans. Trump has repeatedly accused these cities of being out of control, claiming that only federal intervention can restore order. For many critics, however, this signals a dangerous precedent, using the National Guard as a political tool to police dissent and centralize control. As protesters in Washington demand their city back, their chants of Free DC carry a message that stretches far beyond the Capitol. They represent resistance to the idea of cities being placed under federal military oversight. With Trump extending the Guard's stay in D.C. and floating plans for similar measures in Chicago, the battle over local autonomy, civil rights, and federal power is just beginning. Whether the president sees it as restoring order or opponents view it as a creeping occupation, one thing is certain: the fight over who controls America's cities is far from over.